This is Moments of Truth, the webcast with and for customer success professionals. I'm Andrew Marks, co-founder of Success Hacker. Today, I am joined by my friend and colleague, Kristi Faltorusso, Vice President of Customer Success at Intellishift, an end-to-end cloud-based platform tailored to the operational goals of large multi-use fleets. Kristi, welcome to the program, and thanks for making time for me today. Why don't you tell our viewers and listeners more about you and the Intellishift platform?
Great, Andrew. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in the conversation today. I'm thrilled to be here. A little bit about me, been in customer success for the past decade and have had the privilege and honor of working with about 4 different SaaS, hypergrowth SaaS companies, building, transforming, and scaling their CS teams. So as of right now, I am Vice President of Customer Success at Intellishift. And as you described, we're really here to help organizations operationalize their fleets. So giving them access to data about their most valuable assets to help them drive more efficient operations and ROI.
Excellent. Thanks for the overview. So as we were getting going today, you mentioned this C4 framework for customer communication. I was hoping that we could kind of dive into that, but I think people would be interested in hearing what you're doing over there with regards to this C4 framework.
Yeah, absolutely. So C4 is actually just a short way to talk about what we've called the Customer Communications Clearing Committee. And so this framework was actually really built out of the need that we needed to do better by our customers in streamlining and operationalizing our communications to them. I would say in the past 10 months that I've been at Intellishift, we've run into a few challenges. So one, gaps in, communication. So no communication altogether. So we do really exciting things with our product, right? And don't tell anybody. It's kind of happening in the silo. Poor timing, right? So maybe it's delayed communication or, the wrong time just altogether in terms of their life cycle. Off-brand messaging, improper channels, right? So not communicating to our customers through the right mechanisms, right? Maybe we're sending it via email where it should be in app or in our knowledge center or on the phone. Information gaps, so not providing enough information about what we want to share with them. Poor persona mapping. So we've run into this where we're, communicating some message and it's going to the wrong person, right? It's not what our executives care about, or it might not be what our end user cares about. Lack of visibility internally. So especially with our customer facing teams, not having insight into how and when we're communicating with customers is really difficult for them to manage. And then conflicting messages, right? So you might be speaking with somebody in support or customer success and, not hearing the same thing from the same organization is a big challenge there. So those were 8 really main points, and I think really important points at that really drove the need for us to create a framework to streamline this a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I look at all of those, and every single one of them is going to lead you down a path where the customer is going to be like, "What are you talking about?" Right? The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. I'm hearing mixed messages. It doesn't show well.
No, it doesn't. It's actually, and if we focus on creating a frictionless experience for our customers, the first place I can think of to start is just our communication. And so, like I said, it took me 10 months to focus my time and attention on this, but not that it wasn't as important as some of the other initiatives we prioritized, but now it's time for us to tackle this and get this right. One of the things that we're doing is we've started to rebuild our marketing team, and with me scaling the customer success team and us doing a lot with regards to our product, we really need to be more thoughtful about this. And so, our C4 framework is really just that. It's the process and operationalization of communication through our internal teams and mechanisms. And this is to really address all 8 of those pain points, right? Make sure it's got the right message going to the right person at the right time, through the right channel. And so, we wanted to really make sure that we were doing a better job by our customers, like I said, to create that frictionless experience.
And I love this, but one of the first things that I think somebody would ask was, "Isn't this marketing's job?"
I could see where there would be marketing overlap, but I like to kind of spearhead all customer related initiatives. And, just giving that I have some pretty extensive experience in managing processes like this, I felt like it was my internal civic duty to step up as the executive sponsor. I always say, like, we are the team that manages a lot of the comms for the customers. And so I think just kind of owning it helps ensure that we've got a good handle on that. Marketing is involved. So we could talk about, the team, which we've called the core C4, which is the team that really helps to evangelize and operationalize this effort. So what we've done is
let's do that. Let's go a
yeah,
little
because I
deeper
think
here.
that will help with
yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And listen, at every organization, it's going to be different. If you've got folks, different leaders with different experience or different interests, right? Of course, they're gonna take on the initiatives and want to spearhead things as they seem fit for them. For me, this was something that I thought was critical to our success, and like I said, to the end-to-end experience of our customers. And so, marketing is heavily involved. So for our core C4 team, we've got there's 3 core functions that are a big part of this. It's our marketing team, customer success, and product. Because we believe that those are the 3 core teams that are going to drive the need for communication and help with the messaging, help with the branding, help with the mechanisms, right? These are the teams that own the technology, that communicate with our customers. Based on the way that we're organized today, we don't have a complex hierarchy. We're only about 120 people. So given the size of our company, we can have those 3 core buckets and streamline it pretty efficiently. So what we've done is we've actually identified one individual in each of those functions that is going to be the representative. And that person's responsibility is going to help to make sure that, again, the messaging that we send is the right messaging for the right person. From a technology standpoint, we're going to have to make sure that it's going through the right channel. So this could be in-app, it could be in our knowledge center, it could be something that's going out via email, so part of our email marketing communications. There could be some other mechanism, right? It's phone call, right? A lot of our team, we're just meeting with customers, preparing support. So it really does depend. We've created a repository and a list of here's all the ways that we can communicate with our customers. So beyond the message, right? It's creating and identifying the right mechanism. The second thing is obviously making sure that we've got all the information that we need. Like I said, one of the issues that we had to address was gaps in that information, right? So like we would talk about something, but not to the depth that we should, or the depth and breadth that we should have. So that the gaps there were causing issues, right? It was actually causing a lot of pain point for our support team because we weren't providing enough information. So people were following up to get more insight. There's also the need to just make sure that the timing is correct. So we've got to have somebody who's sequencing and has visibility into all the different touch points, right? And so this is where my ops manager, she's working on all of our customer advocacy programs. So whether that be our webinar program or our newsletter or reference programs and things like that. So she's got a lot of visibility into what's happening and all the touch points to our customers. So having her really kind of in the driver's seat for this makes sure that we're coordinating all of those efforts. So for us, those 3 teams work, and we've basically allowed each of the leaders of those functions say, this is the best person in our team and our organization to be a part of this. But it's that individual's job to then go back to their entire team collectively to make sure things are kind of, we've got the right messaging, the right branding, timing, all that stuff.
I love that. I'm a huge fan of customer education. Customer communication. I'm a big fan of customer education.
I was going to say education is important too.
Education is important across the board, but I'm a big fan of customer communication, either residing in customer success with a product and marketing as supporting actors, or if it happens to reside in marketing itself, that there's more than just a dotted line. There's a strong line between customer success and marketing. Make sure everything's coordinated.
Yep. And we created a RACI around this process as well, just to, clear up any ambiguity. So everyone knew what they were responsible for. And each part of the process and the motion has a different owner, right? So there's somebody who's responsible for curating the messaging and the content, right? There's somebody who's responsible for, getting everything set up in the right systems for deployment, right? And that operations behind it. Someone who's scheduling and making sure that this is in line with all the other programs and initiatives we've got going on. So everyone has a different role and responsibility in it. And my role in the entire program is just to serve as the executive sponsor, right? Our objective is to make sure that we've got effective communication for our customers. And so that is what I'm there to kind of shepherd and just make sure that through this effort, that's actually the outcome.
And this, you said this is something you're just rolling out, or you just rolled out recently?
Yeah, so we've just built out the framework. We're introducing it more broadly into the organization, and we're kicking off the efforts in the next week.
Excellent. I'm going to be interested in hearing how that plays out with your
Yeah,
customers.
we're really excited. Honestly, like I said, at this point, what excites me the most about this is that we've got the right attention and focus around a big issue. And so I don't think that we're going to solve it in the first shot. I don't think that it's going to be seamless process execution day one, but we're going to iterate on it, right? And
Yeah,
now it's got the
exactly.
time and attention and ownership that it needs to make sure that this is happening effectively.
Yeah, you put a stake in the ground, right? It's just like customer success. We want to manufacture customer success. The more process we lay out, the better. And the better we understand the process, the better we'll be able to fine tune it and deliver what we're trying to deliver out of it, right? Whether it's communication or it's customer desired outcomes.
Yep.
So I love it. I love the initiative. That sounds like a great initiative. Like I said, I'm going to be interested in hearing more about how that turns out. So we'll have to check in with you again on that. I'll ping you during one of our gain, grow, retain sessions.
I was going to say, I'm like, I am hoping to have some good updates in the coming weeks. At least, listen, even if they're not great updates on the last, right? Like we might say, hey, this failed miserably on round one and we've got to iterate on it a whole bunch. But my goal has always been to at least share that information to help everybody else.
Failures are incredible learning experiences. I learn more from my failures than from successes. So
I know, that's why I'm so smart.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And humble too. So that's the external customer facing communication. I love the idea. I love the framework. I love the initiative. But just as important is that internal communication, right, with your peers on the executive staff. So I kind of want to take a bit of a tangential kind of sidebar here and talk about, what are you measuring right now in your team, and what methodology did you go about figuring that out? What are you measuring, and then what are you messaging to your internal executive stakeholder peers?
Yeah. So, one of the interesting things about Intellishift is that we are a privately held, owned and operated company. We don't have any investors, so we don't have a board. And so the operational rigor that you might have in place when you do have a board and you have to explain and justify and socialize a lot of what's happening in the business to them hasn't really happened here before, right? Like the leadership team has the visibility into revenue, which is, I think, kind of the utmost importance to some of them.
Yeah.
But there really hasn't been a great framework on how we're sharing more broadly all of the initiatives, right? And so one of the things that I have now started to work on with that leadership team is creating more of that framework, that QBR process that I would have otherwise executed with a board, right? And so maybe I'm going a little bit deeper. I'm going to have a little bit more time. It's kind of my content to orchestrate and my meeting to lead. So if I want to do 90 minutes, I can. It's a little different in that regard.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out what was an appropriate framework that would ensure that my leadership team and my peers would have the right visibility into what me and the team are doing. So I broke it down into 5 different buckets of what I thought was important, and I can talk a little bit about each of them. But I broke it down into the numbers, the function, the customers, the team, and the future. And I felt like across those 5 buckets, I was able to tell the right narrative around what we were doing, good, bad, and otherwise. So starting with the numbers, some of the things that we focus on, and like, listen, there's a million KPIs and data points anybody could talk about. And we are very big on crawl, walk, run. And so given that this is our first pass, we wanted to simplify what we were talking about. So what I'm starting with is logo retention, gross revenue retention, net revenue retention, growth, product usage data, and product adoption data. And so those were the buckets that I broke down into my numbers category, right? So this is going to help them understand, what are the customers, what does retention look like as a whole? Who are the customers that we're keeping? We'll start to drill into that by segment. Gross revenue retention, right? Dollars in, dollars out. How much of the dollars did we start with? Are we keeping? Right. Net revenue retention. So all the dollars less the churn plus the growth.
Right.
And then just bucketing out growth separately because we want to understand kind of what does that look like. And we've got a few different growth mechanisms. For us, it could be expansion. So customers who are bringing on more assets. So if a customer has a fleet of 100 and now they want to add on 50 additional assets, great, now they're at 150. So that 50 represents the growth there.
Right.
And then, so those were the revenue metrics that we decided to highlight right now. And so what we're starting with is we're leading it by quarter. And then breaking it down by segment. So we really understand the behaviors across our different customer cohorts. We've got 2 of our segments that I would say probably make up, 20% of our logos, right? 80% of our revenue, which is not uncommon as you think about your segmentation. We've got a very long tail. And so the data that I'll be drilling down into a bit more will be definitely correlated back to our enterprise and strategic account segments. But so that was the numbers framework. And so Andrew, I actually kind of like to bounce that off you and see off of the data points that I've decided to start with. I mean, what are your thoughts there? Is there anything glaring that I'm missing? And don't talk about NPS and sentiment and all of that, because I got that later.
No, you're gonna. No, I think you nailed some of the key ones that I would look at as well. Logo retention. Are we losing people? Are we maintaining our customer base? Of course, GRR and NRR is a no-brainer. And then understanding how you're growing. So I like it's you've got the expansion growth, which you have some control over, but not, because it's an effect. I mean, you have some control over it in that the more successful they are, the more efficient they are with your product, they're more likely to put more on your platform. But that is very much dependent on their business.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right,
and I'll
right.
tell you, COVID had definitely impacted these organizations. While we kept a lot of our customers, they themselves were not growing. In fact, many of them were contracting,
They're
right?
contracting,
they were taking assets off the road. I mean, one of our industries is transportation. Think buses and limos. And guess what? No one's going anywhere in a limo. And so they were taking assets off the road. So while the logo retention looks really good for us and is strong, it definitely, we were getting hit when we thought about, kind of what does that growth look like, and even just the ability to maintain NRR over time.
But I think it's important to be able to tell that story.
Yeah.
We're seeing contraction in our ARR, right? But that's a result of a situation, as a result of COVID, that everybody is. And by the way, we still are retaining all these logos.
Yeah, which I think that's the important story, right? Like, and I think it's a story that we can tell that a lot of businesses unfortunately can. So our customers don't want to leave us. They've just asked us to be flexible with them and work with them as they're navigating their own industries.
Right, exactly. No, but I think these numbers are, I think you're focusing on the, without, of course, knowing all aspects of your business.
Of course.
These seem like a reasonable set of metrics to be focused on out of the gate, for sure.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the validation. I'm confident that that's going to land well.
Of course.
So the next bucket that I have there is the function. And so this is all about what we've been building since I came on board. So, one thing, just to give context here, is when I came into the organization, we had an account management team in place. And I was brought on to transform that into a traditional customer success organization. So we've done everything from transitioning kind of roles and responsibilities and rebuilding the team, to putting all the new processes and framework in place, down to, resegmentation, customer journey, engagement model, all of our playbooks, creating all the materials to operationalize things at scale, thinking about how are we reducing, redundant tasks. And so, that omni-channel approach to a digital-led program, self-guided onboarding. So we've taken on a lot of initiatives to really help with the operationalization of the team. So we're going to talk a bit about that, right? So it's our processes, the operations, and then the technology, because, we made a huge investment this year into Gainsight, which has been fantastic for us. And, I think the team is thrilled to have that. We've made great use of it. And so we definitely want to keep talking about that, because it was a huge investment. I want the leadership team and my peers to understand the ROI behind it. So that's what we're going to cover in the function, and kind of do a deep dive into some of that. Then the third component is our customers, which I think is obviously super, super important. So what we're going to do is we're going to socialize our customer wins, customer losses, highlights and lowlights, customer feedback, and customer engagement. And so, feedback will encompass everything through all of our surveys. So NPS being one of them, but we also do CSAT. We do surveys at multiple points in the customer journey. So just understanding what that data looks like and what it's telling, honestly, is a story. We obviously want to celebrate our big wins. We want to acknowledge our losses and kind of learn from that. So that's what we want to do in the kind of like the customer section, right? Is just kind of highlight some of that we thought was a good framework.
Right.
For the team, my team has grown tremendously. Andrew, since May, we've brought on 10 people and I'm hiring 11 more before we round out 2020. So we've had tremendous growth, which is super exciting. But now I need to talk to my leadership team about how they're doing. So not only, how do we do against our hiring plans? How are they all performing? We're going to be using 9box to assess each of them individually to know kind of where our hyper growth and hyper performance, players are landing and how they're doing. We also use tools like 15Five that really help with the management of the team and our day-to-day. And that also allows for us to do a weekly kind of sentiment or pulse check. And so we've got some data to just understand individual sentiment, right? So how do our employees feel week to week? And then start to identify trends. Like at the height of COVID, I will tell you, we were getting a lot more 2s and 3s than we were 4s and 5s. So there's some interesting data there around even how the team feels about the work that they're doing. And then obviously everyone's performance against their targets, as well as some of the professional planning metrics that we had put in place during their mid-year review. So that's what we're going to do when we talk about the team. And then obviously even maybe hit on a little bit of our growth plans, but that's where it leads us into the future. And I think that's what our team is probably going to be most interested in hearing is what's going on and how are we forecasting for Q4. So the future will talk about a little bit of all those buckets, right? The numbers. So what are we anticipating for Q4 and beyond? The function, what's my strategy and how am I planning and what are the next big initiatives? So kind of taking that OKR approach, right? Like what have I prioritized for this quarter and how's that trickling down to the team? Our customers, what are some of the things that we're working on, right? Customer success stories, case studies, our reference programs, some of our advocacy initiatives. This quarter, we also have our customer conference, right? So how are we doing against that for registration and how have we been doing to get our customers engaged? And then the future of the team, right? What does that look like? So that's the way we've broken it down. And I believe this to be a good comprehensive framework, but one where I can also simplify it a bit and keep it, I think, at the right level to share the right points, talk about the right things, but not go too in depth where we're, speaking for hours on hours.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like the framework. And it's the type of framework that I think is relevant, not whether you are a private company and you don't have a board, but it also, if you're dealing with a board, you're going to need to really summarize stuff and be prepared to talk to it. Basically, you typically customer success has like one slide in the board deck.
The most I've seen is like 4, and so we
numbers
basically
and function and customers and team and future. Okay, what can I tell you? And what do you want to drill into, right? So, but I think that's a really good. I think it's a really good framework. It's a really good foundation for having those discussions. And you hit on all the key aspects of what you should be talking about and what your executive peers and your CEO is going to want to hear.
Yeah, I think so. So we're really excited to see how this conversation is going to go. It's the first of its kind. And I'm also hopeful that perhaps maybe, other cross-functional teams can take this framework and apply it, to their teams in terms of what they're doing.
I love it. Lots of communication. So important, right?
Yes. Outward, inward, upward, downward.
Exactly. Every way you can. Just get the right information in the right way, present it at the right time, make sure it's clear, and present it in a way that people want to get it. I love it. Thank you. Thanks for your time. This is great. This is great. Some great frameworks you talked about, and I'm sure anybody who's listening to it's gonna get some value out of it.
Awesome. I hope so. It's all practical, right? It makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure I'm not the only person navigating some of these challenges.
No, you're not. So wonderful. Thanks, Kristi.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew.